Hello and welcome. This is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined as always by SamProof. Today we're going to be talking all about StreamYard versus Restream. What are your options to get started streaming easily? So before we get into that, I need to welcome my guest. Hi Sam, how are you doing?
Good, John. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. It's obviously it's the weekend here in Australia. I know you have a little bit longer to go to get there, but it's been an interesting week. I actually caught up with Tanya Smith on Stream Like a Boss TV
Nice.
on Friday or Thursday, her time, I suppose. The joy of time zones, it never gets old. But it was really great to have a conversation with her about live streaming and OBS Studio and sort of
Cool.
talk to some of her audience members. What have you been up to, Sam? Anything exciting?
Yeah, I think we're all aware that my current major sort of adventure is to get our Cute Avalanche channel to its 4,000 hours of watch time. Last week, I think we had just passed the halfway mark. We're now closing in on 2,500. Though we had a dedicated live stream because we had extra foster cats, and they got not adopted but placed in a cat cafe where they're hanging out. So I don't have a live stream over there right now, and I am scrambling to be like, what am I going to do? Because I was expecting them to leave, just not quite so quickly. But I wanted to bring this into view, which is I found this cool thing, which is a dynamic YouTube cover banner. So we have now, I've been tweaking this every week or so, adding things to it. It might be getting a little much, but this dynamic banner shows like a milestone tracker for our YouTube subscribers. So we are closing in on 1.5 or 1,500, and you can follow that just by going over there. So we'll see if that acts as like sort of a little nudge of a call to action without being like, go do this thing, you know. So that's what I'm playing around with this week, and we'll see how it goes. This is and it's not sponsored. This comes from Mercury, which is a product of Stream Elements.
Nice. Yeah, it's you often sort of see those kinds of tallies and things for fundraisers and stuff. So I mean, it's a great way of sort of visualizing how you're actually reaching out towards your goals. So that's really awesome. I've never seen anything like that as a YouTube banner
Yeah, I thought it was
before. So
pretty
that's
interesting.
that's really cool.
Yeah, they
I
also do one that's like a dynamic uh, uh, YouTube video cover. You can do one video, not all of your videos. And specifically, the example was like for a fundraiser. So if you are doing like maybe a live stream that's a fundraiser, you can do something very similar for your YouTube videos with that kind of milestone readout.
Nice. So just a reminder, we're going out live to all the various places. So if you are watching live, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. Today we're talking all about Restream and StreamYard. So these are two video live streaming services, and I guess to get started, let's have a chat about what these might be good for. And as much as I love OBS Studio, and I tell everybody I love OBS Studio, it's not. There is a little bit of a learning curve there. And I find that Restream Studio and StreamYard, they're a little bit more intuitive. They're a little bit easier to get started. And I think for a
Yeah.
lot of new streamers in particular, you really need to just grab that USB mic, that webcam, hit live, and actually start communicating with your audience. And they do all kinds of cool things. They both work. Restream Studio, which is the browser-based experience of Restream. Restream does some other things that we'll talk about in a little bit, but the Restream Studio gives you the ability to invite guests in. You can share your screen. You can monitor the chats and actually bring comments onto the screen. I say that about Restream. It's also true of StreamYard in a lot of
Yes, it is.
ways. The bulk of to be honest, and I hate to spoil the ending for you, but they're both great products, and they'll both probably do most of what you need to do.
Yeah,
So
they all do 98% of the same things. There are a few nuanced differences that do set them apart from each other, and we'll get into those later. But both are great.
And I guess the other thing I've noticed lately is that when one of them releases a feature, a couple of months later, the other one will catch up.
Pretty
So
much.
they're all. Yeah, I mean, we're really fortunate at the moment to live in a time where the tools and technologies are really, really good, and you really can't go wrong with either of them. But we do want to sort of articulate some of the choices that you might like to make if you're deciding to use one or the other. You may even decide to use both. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Um, but I guess really, it's the nice thing about both of these services is that you're working in the web browser. There are some constraints, especially on Restream Studio, and that's where we do this particular show. I have had to come and sort of accept a lot of the templates, and I've got to be honest with you, I'm a bit of a control freak, so that wasn't easy for me, but I do love the simplicity of this. We can literally just open up the browser, we can set up our graphics and our captions in our lower thirds, and we're good to go really, really quickly. I guess in terms of actually trying these out, because again, we can tell you what we like about them, but again, you need to figure out if they're going to work for you. And the nice thing about this is they both have free plans and they both have monthly subscriptions. So even if you were to try one out for 1 month and then switch to the other next month, just to try them out, go live a number of times and actually work out what features best support what you're trying to do, and go from there.
Yeah, there's no commitment either way. There is a benefit to doing an annual commitment on either. Gives you a better monthly, rate. But yes, you can do either for a month and be like, meh, I'll go to the other one.
It's a bit like, I've been subscribed to Netflix for forever, and I thought, let's just cancel that. Let's just go to Disney Plus for a little while and see what they've got on offer. So, again, I guess, and they do, these tools both work in very, very similar ways. So, again, I feel like I'm harping on about that one particular point. But before we go any further, I guess in terms of our lives, often a good thing to do, you can just go live at the drop of a hat when you feel like it, but I think it's often better to actually think about scheduling some live events.
Yeah.
And, that way you can let people know ahead of time. You can actually set them up to go out to different destinations, and people can usually opt in and get notified of when that is to go live. I'm just going to play a really short video about how you can do that in Restream, and we'll talk some more in a moment. Schedule an event in Restream. In your dashboard, click on Schedule Events. Choose how you will schedule your events. You can use Restream Studio in the browser, you can use a service like OBS Studio, or you can schedule a pre-recorded video. Specify a title and description for your event, specify a date and time for your event, and upload a thumbnail. Now click Next. Here you will specify your destinations. You can toggle as many of these on as your plan allows. So once you're happy with your events, you simply click Create Events. And I imagine, though, please correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, I'm sure it would be a very similar process in StreamYard itself.
Yeah, I think the only real difference is you create the title first, and then you make the, it just kind of flips the way it's being done. But yes, it's very similar.
Okay, cool. And I guess the other thing I would note about working in Restream is when you do set up those events, you can actually go in and customize how they appear at each of those destinations.
Yeah.
So if I go into my LinkedIn Live settings, there's an option to turn on automatically generated English captions. So I like to go in and do that. I also like to go in and select the one that's on Twitter and actually put in our Twitter usernames in that text. So you can do that within the software, but there are also additional options if you go out to each of those destinations after the event has been created and sort of go in and edit those. Again, on LinkedIn, you can actually tag speakers. You can add a description. There are all kinds of things. In YouTube, we have the chat replay, whether you want that to be included after the event or not, which is a good one to select if you have a lot of discussion in the chat. That can be quite useful. So, Sam, do you have any general thoughts, even outside of these particular pieces of software, about, scheduling events, like why you might want to do that, why, or how you might want to do that, perhaps?
Sure. I mean, I obviously would opt to schedule something over not scheduling it. If you know you're going to do it, you might as well put it out there. I would say, 48 hours prior, like before the thing is going to happen, is probably a good starting point, if not a little further. Maybe a week. I probably wouldn't go farther out than that. But I love scheduling things because it gives you something to talk about. You can tweet about it. You can make a short video about it. You can talk about it in whatever the previous stream is. Though we have noticed some interesting caveats to that, since John and I do this restream and he invites me to share my own links on the broadcast. For some reason, that pairing link only shows up 6 days out. So I can't be in this stream and be like, next week's stream is right here. Here's your link. I can't do it. I have to be like, check my Twitter out tomorrow and it's going to be there. But beyond that, it's great to have something to point to and be like, this is coming up in the future. And you can be like, 5-day warning, 2-day warning, tomorrow, 2 hours, 1 hour. Like, gives you stuff to talk about. Maybe not quite so blandly. Be excited about it. But yeah, anything you can point to as something that's coming up is worth talking about.
And I mean, that's a great point you make about the Restream pairing link. So again, I create these events for this particular show, and then I give Sam a link, and he can actually log into his Restream account and actually send that out to some destinations as well. So, and I guess like I kind of need habits and routines to be successful in the things that I do, and until quite recently, I would schedule these things out a solid week in advance, and now I kind of do it 6 days in advance, just so it gives us a little bit of time to think about whether we definitely want to commit to next week's topic, rather than do it straight before this show. But I guess for me, like one of the most unexpectedly popular things that I do is I actually create a LinkedIn newsletter. And each week I talk about what I'm doing either on this show or my other show. And it's, I go into a fair bit of detail in that format because I figure, I mean, I like to go deep on any topic anywhere. It's just, I think that's part of being an introvert is like, I don't want to do any of the small talk. I want to get into the juicy details. But again, I just feel like it's something about planting a seed ahead of time and then saying, hey, we've discussed all these things. If you want to see it in action, join us live on Friday/Saturday, depending on your time zones. Time zones is such a thing. People ask me where my show is, and I'm like, just click the link. It'll tell you when it is in your time zone.
Right.
So that is certainly another thing that you need to negotiate, especially if you're bringing on a guest or you've got a co-host, or daylight savings is a thing too. It's a good idea to let the computers sort of work out all the variations in those time zones and daylight savings and stuff. So that's really important to keep in mind. But again, I think the other thing too about events, if you're doing something consistently and at the same time, or maybe roughly at the same time, I think it does create an expectation in the audience, and you do also you become part of the rhythm of their week as well. They'll potentially look forward to what you're doing, and go and watch it or listen to it or whatever the case may be. So this is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey, and I'm joined by SamProof today. We're talking all about StreamYard versus Restream. So these are both great places to start for live streamers. I feel like I've been talking for a really, really long time, so that's okay. We'll keep going. So Restream Studio is, and I guess it's really we're going to focus predominantly on Restream Studio, which is their in-browser experience. But it is worth noting that there are some other things that Restream will do outside of that, and we'll get to those in a moment. But let's have a look at this graphic here. This is actually a screenshot after last week's show. And I just want to give you a sense of, some of the options that you have in terms of the Restream Studio experience. On the left-hand side, we've actually got our inputs. So this is where Sam and I are. This is also where you'll actually get things pop up if you're sharing your screen, for example, or if you have a second camera. In the main section here in the middle, we've got the things that are going out live to your audience. And again, there are a number of different presets. So if you want to feature one person as the main thing and maybe the other person to the side, or maybe you're sharing your screen and you want that to be on the left-hand side, you can do that as well. There are actually options for horizontal and vertical streaming. You can't do those at the same time, but if you are just going out to Instagram or TikTok, you could certainly commit to the portrait version, the vertical version. We've got the ability to turn on your microphone and turn sort of toggle on and off the microphone and the camera. We've got the ability to add some different input sources as well. You can invite other people to join you. And you've got your settings there as well. We've also got over here on the right-hand side, we've got the chat, which you can actually show the entire overlay on the screen, or you can feature a particular chat message as we've done on here. So you'll see Insomnia Doodle says, thanks for the show from last week. We've got the captions, so we can come in and actually bring in some lower thirds. And there's also a ticker that you can incorporate as well. We've got graphics. So this is actually a place where you can go and you can change some default colors in terms of the brand settings. You can bring on logos. You can show overlay images like the one I'm showing you right now. You can play video clips and you can adjust your backgrounds as well. And the last section in here is a little bit more complicated, and it is a little bit newer as well. But I'll show you how this works actually in real time. We have this QR code section. So this is sort of Restream Studios' attempt to go over the live shopping market. So often, if you know, and it's the worst thing you can possibly do on a live stream is put a giant Amazon link on your screen that goes for 15 lines. Like, no one's going to be typing that out. What you really want to do instead is have a short link or a QR code. And in the QR code section, we've got things so I can go, I can click on this one and it'll bring up a QR code that goes to johnlacey.com. That's one option. We also have the QR code and image. So again, if I click on this one, you'll see down the bottom, learn live streaming, subscribe on YouTube. There are actually compact and classic versions of that as well. So this is the compact, and you'll see there's a little animation there, which is fun as well. I can click on the classic as well, and it will actually put it on the right-hand side there. So those can be really useful if you're, if you're trying to sell something, if you're trying to get somebody to take some action. Even with your lead magnets. So if you want to get somebody on your mailing list and you've got a free ebook, that can be really, really useful as well. I guess, Sam, is there anything that you'd like to call out about the Restream Studio experience specifically at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think those two features you mentioned, which are the QR code and being able to stream in vertical, are things that StreamYard does not do currently, but who knows, maybe it's coming soon. I don't know. And I'm going to say that we are going to talk primarily just about this experience that is the browser-based thing, but it does have a few other ancillary tools like some chatbot stuff and chat relay and other things like that StreamYard doesn't do that are pretty cool.
That's actually literally the next thing on the list. So let's talk about it now. So the chat relay is really cool. So the thing about both StreamYard and Restream is that you're potentially going out to different destinations. So you might be going live on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Twitch. There are actually, I think, 30 odd different destinations that you can use in Restream Studio, for example. But the thing, and in some ways that's amazing, but the thing about that is not everybody's going to be communicating with each other. So the Facebook people may not see that, they're not going to see the YouTube comments and vice versa. The nice thing about the chat relay is that where it's supported, it will actually say, like if you're watching on YouTube and somebody says, great show on Facebook, it'll actually relay that into the YouTube chat. It doesn't work on all the platforms. LinkedIn Lives don't support the chat relay, so it is kind of a one-way conversation on that end. But it is really cool. It sort of helps sort of bridge that gap a little bit between all those different destinations.
Yeah, I think it's really useful. It's pretty much the biggest platforms that get supported for something like that. It's the ones that have like an open API that are out there. So some of the others may eventually get it, but yeah, it's something that I've noticed with Restream is a pretty slow adoption because I think there's probably a lot of nuance to that because everyone's API is different. You can't just be like, well, now we're just going to add Trovo in and we just have to click this box that goes Twitch and change that word to Trovo. It's not that easy.
And I kind of suspect that some platforms don't like the idea of
Sure.
using anything other than them as well. So that might be a thing. And I guess like it is possible for me to send out chat messages from Restream to some platforms, but again, that's something that LinkedIn just are like, no, I'm not having a bar of that.
Yeah.
So I mean that's certainly one thing. One of my other favorite features about Restream outside of the studio experience is actually just the ability to use a third-party tool like OBS Studio.
Yeah.
So I can set up my event in Restream, and this is something I do for my other show, Coffee and Content. I do it predominantly out of OBS Studio, but I'll get an API key. I'll just throw it in there. I'll hit the live button when it's time to go live. And the great thing about that is it takes the signal from my computer via my internet connection and sends them out to those 5 different locations.
Yeah.
It is possible to do that all in OBS Studio, but you're essentially making life 5 times more difficult for your internet connection. And again, so that may be fine for some people. My dubious Australian internet connection can't always deal with that. So that is certainly something I use there as well. I guess one other thing that's probably worth mentioning, and I haven't used this a lot, but I used to actually use this on Twitter because you can only, I don't remember how long video uploads to Twitter, like what the maximum is, but there was a maximum. And the way I sort of overcame that was I would schedule pre-recorded videos as pretend lives through Restream. So you can upload your video, you can send it out to different locations at a particular time, and you can go from there. All right, awesome. So those, I mean, there are probably other things that I'm forgetting, but those are sort of the ones that that really stand out for me as well. So this is the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey. I'm joined today, as always, by SamProof. Today we're talking all about StreamYard versus Restream. In case it isn't completely obvious, I am pretty invested in Restream. I have paid for that yearly subscription, and I use it for just about everything. But in the interest of balance, Sam's going to talk to us about StreamYard because I know it is a great product. I hear a lot of love for this product on LinkedIn and elsewhere. And talk to me about StreamYard, Sam.
Sure. I mean, again, StreamYard is a browser-based experience. It does not have the ability to let you use OBS, but here you go. This is the standard browser dashboard. It's very similar to what you just saw with Restream, where you have the sort of scenes under the video player. Let me I can't go above it. All right, anyway, you have the scenes, pre-created scenes under the video player. On the right-hand sidebar, you have a place for the comments where you can put those on your screen. Let's get rid of this for a minute. And all of those sort of things. There is a section for branding, which has both brand colors and a logo and video clips and a background. And it even comes with background music that you can go through or upload your own. One of the as far as creating the broadcast, we already talked about that. It's a very similar experience, but you just start with creating it and then you schedule it after you've created it. One of the more unique things that Restream doesn't have is this handy tool which lets you custom create a scene. It's not quite as finessable, is that a word, as OBS, where you can like literally pixel by pixel go in and be like, this is a text source, this is 2 different, I'm going to put a camera here and a camera here, and they're going to be in complete juxtapositions. This gives you a few different things to play around with, and you can free move those chunks. So at the bottom, you see sort of a camera carousel, which will dynamically change depending on how many guests you've invited. And then I've added this big screen sharing media area, but I could put an individual camera on there as well. So that's pretty cool, and you can make a good amount of those. One of the things, and I'm not sure if Restream does do this, I think it does. It has hotkeys for each scene, and in StreamYard you can actually assign those hotkeys. I think in Restream they're just predetermined. or are you actually able to custom
I'm
change them?
That's a great question. I'm literally going to check while we're talking. So if I go into the settings, I actually they don't have a lot of them, but they are customizable. So you can it does look like I can
Okay.
actually go in there and change
Okay.
that. So if I wanted to,
Very cool.
so actually I say that maybe I'm wrong. No, no. Okay, so it looks like you can select those, but you can't change them. No, that's a good point, Sam.
Got
Yeah,
it.
I must admit, I when I'm on OBS Studio, I do. Um, I don't know if you can still see me. Restream's
Yeah.
giving me an error about my
Oh, I
camera.
see you.
Okay, cool. When I'm on OBS, I use my Stream
Yes.
Deck for everything, and I just I unless I'm actually doing a tutorial where I need to type or use my mouse, I will outsource everything to the Stream Deck. I do find I do need to use my mouse a lot more when I'm in the Restream Studio option. I know they do have some keyboard shortcuts, but I kind of need to make sure that I'm in that window and that window has focus, and I've got to remember them all.
Yeah.
That's the thing I tell everybody about the Stream Deck. It's like keyboard shortcuts really are amazing, but you have to remember them. You have to know what they
Yeah.
are. And I can look at the buttons, and they will have some labels on them, or they might have special
Yeah.
images on them. So that helps me out a lot. But certainly in terms of that, the ability to subdivide your screen, and that is a relatively recent feature on
Yeah. It was
StreamYard,
weeks ago. Yeah.
one that they're very excited about. That is really cool. Like I said, as a bit of a control freak, I've had to relinquish some of that when we are in this Restream Studio experience, because I have my six defaults options and literally nothing else. So if and to be honest, I think for new streamers, you don't want to get too distracted with other things. You really want to focus on the message and the conversation. But again, you might want to explore that in StreamYard. That is something that is really really interesting.
Yeah, I think once you've gotten the hang of things, you play with their scenes and eventually you'll get to a point of like, "Ah, I really wish I could do X." And boom, now you might be able to do that. Maybe you want to do something even more complicated, and then it's time to look at OBS and go there. But yeah, for what the base software is for both of these, Restream and StreamYard, it's just a great, easy place to start doing a stream before you know what you need to be doing. Because a lot of people open OBS and there's just this big black square staring back at them, and they're like, I don't know. It's like trying to sit down and be like, I'm just going to write a novel. Here's a ream of paper. All right.
And it's interesting because even yesterday, someone was like, "How long did it take you to learn OBS?" And I'm like, I wish I had a better answer for you, because
Yeah.
since about 2020, like, time has no meaning for me anymore. Every
Yeah.
day is Blur's day. But I guess really, I only use a handful of features in OBS. I know there's so much more it could do, but that's all I really need.
Right.
And I'm hoping to actually create some shorter, succinct tutorials on the very basics that you need to get started, because it is that weird thing that so many people are scared of that software, and I'm like, I know it can be daunting because it is so powerful and there are so many options, but
Yeah.
the thing is, you won't need probably 95% of those options. If you can create your scenes, add your camera, maybe add some graphics and some text, know how to switch between the different scenes. You probably need to check your video settings and your streaming settings. But beyond that, like, that's, you can do amazing things with just that. But again, I appreciate that is an investment of time and a bit of a learning curve. So if you want to skip that entirely, Restream and StreamYard are definitely good places to start.
Yeah. I would say that most people using OBS are using less than 10% of the features. That's my conservative guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a software that can grow with you.
Yes.
It's just got the slightest learning curve to it. If somebody asked me how long it took me to learn OBS, I would probably say something like, I think I had like 3 or 4 times where I opened it, looked at it, closed it, and then like maybe there was a 48-hour period of like, let's do this thing and figure it out. But yeah,
Hmm.
once you sit down with it, it's gonna be pretty easy. And back then there was no educational material. Now you could sit down with a YouTube video, or guys like us, and we'll have you going in 5 minutes.
Absolutely. And I guess the other thing is, and I feel like we despite our show topic, we're just going hard on the OBS love, which we always do anyway. But I guess like there is that trade-off between ease of use and flexibility and
Yeah,
customization. And to be honest, you need to decide where your priorities are really.
yeah.
You know,
I
it
would say that the the use case for Restream and StreamYard that kind of blows OBS out of the water is this experience of being able to easily invite guests into the software, have them both have decent quality because they're not broadcasting to your computer and you're broadcasting them out, which I we've had problems. I have a very good setup. I have a a decent internet connection, slightly better than John's. And I've had problems with that. And StreamYard was the answer to that problem. We do a show at the end of every month on a Wednesday. We have 4 people calling in or more, and it's better. you know, so
mhm.
there's still occasionally connection issues here and there where they just drop the resolution for a few seconds, but it's not like a complete burnout of like, well, now everybody's dead. It's just one person for a little bit, maybe. Sometimes it goes flawlessly.
And I think, honestly, like we can, as content creators, as live streamers, we can be really self conscious about that. But
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and some very popular cashed up programs will have weird audio artifacts, and they will have people disappear and come back.
Yeah.
It's not really a big concern. I think people
No.
who are in this world sort of understand the technical limitations of some of these things, and they're actually fairly forgiving.
Yeah.
Even in terms of like the audio quality, you do really want to work on the audio quality. You want it to be as good as you can. But I'm always amazed as someone who listens to a lot of podcasts how forgiving I am. And
Sure.
like it's much more important to me that I'm interested in your topic. I'm interested in you as a person or a presenter. And if that's the case, if you can hold my interest, I can listen to all kinds of things. So it's all worth keeping in mind. So this is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey, and I'm SamProof. And despite our slight detour into our OBS love, we do love OBS. We are talking today about StreamYard and Restream as these two platforms that you can sort of open up and get started in really, really quickly. Again, again, we love equipment, we love gear, we love tech. But for most people, if you're starting out, I really recommend just get yourself a web camera, get yourself a mic, probably a USB mic to get started. Have some headphones, have a semi-decent internet connection, and then actually try out both Restream or StreamYard. As we said earlier, they both have free options to get started. Those free options do include a little bit of branding for either Restream or StreamYard. If you really don't like that, you can actually get started on their plans, and we'll talk about the plans a little bit later on as well. But I think really when you are getting started, you just need to create a proof of concept. You need to be agile enough to sort of work out what it is you want to do and how it's going to work, and really how you can reproduce that format on a weekly basis, if or however frequently you're choosing to do that. I know sometimes they're human beings are really disproportionately fascinated by the new and the novel.
Mhm.
And there are so many shiny objects out there to distract you. And I advise that to the extent that you're able to, that you don't get swept up into that shiny object syndrome, that you just, or that FOMO that all the marketers are playing on. And you just really get started and think about what is the message I'm sharing, what is the value I'm bringing to people, and how can I do that relatively quickly? Because and again, this is a trap that I sometimes fall into. I'll tell myself I'll get started after I buy the expensive equipment or after I've read 15 books on the subject or the video courses. But the truth is, you get better feedback by just doing things and seeing how they work out. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about recordings and video storage in both Restream and StreamYard. So once it is, I don't think I mentioned this, but it is actually possible to record in Restream Studio without going live as well. But either way, whether you're live or just recorded, you have the ability to go in and download the files that are associated with that presentation, that live stream. In Restream Studio at the moment, you've got the ability to download the video. You've got the ability to download the audio as its own source. You've actually got split audio tracks, so I can have one of me talking and one of Sam talking. And they do actually have a feature, which I don't think they've quite worked out the bugs on at the moment. But in theory, in the future, you should be able to download separate videos as well. These actually appear to be in MKV format, which is a format that OBS uses as well. I've downloaded these from the last few shows and I've tried to remux them, which is the process of taking them from that MKV format and making them MP4s, which is sort of a standard video format. I haven't had any success with that in the last few weeks, so hopefully they're going to think about how that works. But the great thing about this is that once you've got those video files, you can go off and remix and edit and repurpose them to your heart's content. Sam, can you talk to me a little bit about how this works in StreamYard?
Sure. Yeah, with StreamYard, again, it saves all of your videos, and it gives you the ability to replay it in their video section. You can edit the title, things like that. You can download it. There's a big truck going by. Cool. So yeah, you can download it. It does give you the ability to share or embed the actual video, which is interesting. There's only a certain amount of storage based on whatever your plan is. The thing that kind of sets it apart is that it does have a trimming tool. So it has this feature here, which allows you to trim, and it gives you the option of a 16:9 or a 9:16. Then you go into that and pick, whichever video you are, and then you can sort of slide this timeline handles at the bottom to whatever you want. And finally, when you've got what you want, you can export it to pretty much all of the major platforms. The one sort of thing about this that, again, this is kind of a newer feature as well, and it could use some work, is if you actually do a 16:9 and try to make a 9:16 out of it, it's just going to give you that centered, like fit to screen, not fill to screen kind of thing. So you have this 16:9 inside a 9:16 with a blurred background, which, it's a step. It's not great. It's probably not something I'd use because of that.
Sure. I guess that in itself is kind of interesting because I guess not everyone's going to show up to your live stream, and sometimes a good way of just making people aware of what you're doing is by taking the content of your live stream and repurposing it into those shorter clips, because people are often happy to watch you for 1 minute rather than 1 hour. And obviously with technology, there's a whole bunch of different ways of achieving any one result, and there are tools, there are all kinds of things. Content Fries is one of them. I think you can probably do things in Descript as well. Any traditional video editing software, CapCut, Camtasia, like there are lots of different ways of doing it. Again, it sort of comes back to what makes most sense for you and what workflow you can sort of incorporate into your life. But it is great to actually have those individual isolated recordings. It's just a really great way of working with those. So this is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey, and I'm joined as always by SamProof. Today we're talking all about Restream versus StreamYard. Let's talk about the subscription plans. So obviously we've said it more than once. There are free options to get started. So again, I would do that before you commit any kind of money, but they also do have sort of monthly options. So if you if you wanted to try it out for a month and see how you go and try out all the features and get a better sense of how that works, that would be a good idea. I'm just going to have a look at one of these. Let's start with StreamYard this time, Sam. So I'll bring this up on the screen. We've got our free plan, our basic plan, and our professional.
Yeah. So I obviously have the free plan. I have the watermark happening. You get up to 20 hours of streaming a month. So there is a little limitation. You can't just be running like a 24/7 stream through StreamYard there. It does 2 hours of those local recordings per month, and you can have up to 6 participants on your screen, which seems like a good amount for anyone. And then it does allow you to have 2 team members, which are the 2 seats.
Hmm.
And those are people who are basically moderators on that dashboard that can come in, much like I'm a team member of John's here on Restream. You can come in and they can be the one switching while you are hosting, or they can be sending private messages to the guests to be like, hey, you're going to be on in a minute, get ready, things like that, which is great if you're trying to ramp up from being a one-person machine to like, I need other people doing things. This gives you that ability. The basic plan, which I think is pretty good for just about anyone, starting at 20 a month. If you do the annual, it's 25 if you don't. Gets rid of the StreamYard watermark, gives you unlimited streaming. So if you did want to do 24/7, you could. Unlimited local recordings. You can have now up to 10 participants, which seems like a good amount. I mean, like
Hmm.
I'm hard pressed to think of a show where I would need that many offhand. And yeah, it gives you additional multicast. So I guess on the free plan, you're limited to just the one destination. Multicasting, multi-streaming goes to 3 in the basic plan, including a custom RTMP, which is, I
Hmm.
think, something that stands it apart from Restream. Well, I guess not. I guess they're both around there when that happens. It gives you guest destinations, very similar to what John's going to say for Restream as well. And then you have branded logos and backgrounds and things like that. And you can even do sort of these pre-recorded streams where you're not live, you're just playing a VOD to a stream, and it has 50 hours of storage. And then from there, it gets bigger and better in the professional.
Yeah, and I guess it's probably worth mentioning too. Like, we're looking at the screen for individuals. There are business options as
Yeah.
well. StreamYard has their on-air webinar product, which is a whole other beast. It's a little bit outside of the scope of what we're talking about today, but it's really good, and like you can check things out. I guess let's have a look at the restream options, because I mean, 6 months ago, I was looking at both of these, and I at the moment I'm only using the standard option, which is sort of like $16 per month, based on the yearly amount. I believe that one is, but essentially with basic, you can stream to 2 different channels. They've got 30 plus supported platforms. They don't record. They don't actually record the stream, which is interesting. I didn't know that about the basic one, but that's worth keeping in mind. There's a good chance, depending on where you're streaming to, you could still download a version of that stream from YouTube or whatever. So if you are really cash strapped, that could still work for you. You can invite 5 guests. You've got basic graphics, and you can stream in HD 720p. So you can upload videos of 15 minutes, store one video, and there is some storage there as well. The standard plan, which is what I generally use, it has 5 channels, and this was actually the thing that made me choose Restream over StreamYard, because it's a little bit cheaper per month, but it also gave me 5 channels, whereas the equivalent of StreamYard gave me 3. And I kind of just wanted to send the content out a little bit further. So we can create custom channels. This is actually, I don't think I mentioned this before, but you can literally set up different profiles for different if you've got different shows or different products or different series, you can change sort of the graphics and the color schemes, things like that within Restream Studio itself. We can invite up to nine guests, again 720p, and then you've got the professional, which gives you more of everything and also lets you stream in full HD, the 1080p. So again, there's plenty of great options there. Again, think about what your goals are and what you actually need. Again, keep in mind you can always upgrade later. So if you start with something a little bit more basic, whether it's free or whether it's sort of the entry level plan, you can work up to something a little bit more advanced if you need it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the sort of the basic plan for both Yeah, Restream is cheaper there, but then when you go to the next, the professional, then StreamYard is actually the cheaper and has more participants. Like you have 12 guests at that point. What was the amount of destinations on the Restream professional? I think it's 8 for both.
I think it's eight.
8
Yeah, eight
channels. Yeah,
channels.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's in, depending on your needs, it could be a fine line between which one of these fits that gap.
And I guess the only thing I would say, we sort of mentioned all the guests that you can invite to your live stream. I probably wouldn't have them all on the screen at one
No, it
time.
seems like a
Like it's
lot.
just so chaotic. And
Anything more
I've
than
seen some
6 is
things.
crazy.
I've seen some things with 9 people on the screen at once, and it's like it's just madness. Like by all means, have them waiting in the virtual green room
Yeah,
until you're ready to talk to them, but don't overwhelm your audience
yeah.
too badly if you can avoid doing so. So those are some of the things I'd sort of encourage you to think about. I guess like I maybe we should, and I didn't have this on my list, but maybe we should talk about some of the things that maybe we're less crazy about in terms of Restream and StreamYard. I should say that the some of the visual elements on Restream Studio, like we have the ability to actually have the names of the participants
Mhm.
on screen with the video camera, and I just don't like the font. I don't like the way it looks, so I always have that turned off for this show. And again, like we do have the overlay options and the background options and different things. You can switch those out as you like, but I guess, if you're a control freak like me, you'll need to take a deep breath and sort of just embrace some of the constraints. Again, because they are constraints, they free you up to do other things, so you can focus more on your message and your subject matter, which is always a good thing. But again, if you do want to have more of a custom level control, pixel by pixel, then there's probably another tool that you want to explore on that front. Okay.
I
So,
will say, oh, okay, go on.
yes, please. No, no,
Well, I was
keep
going to
going,
say,
Sam.
so along those lines, yeah, I do think I prefer the sort of built-in dynamic graphics for like lower thirds and stuff on StreamYard. But even those, I would love a little more controllability, a little, like um, being able to like pick outlines or have a wider font range and things like that would be nice. The one thing that I really like about StreamYard compared to Restream is that scene dashboard, scene selector. On Restream, it's just a bunch of, squares that if
Hmm.
you're like new and you're just looking at it, you're like, I don't know, just a bunch of squares. On Restream, it actually gives you, or on StreamYard, it actually gives you like the sort of user avatar. So you're like, okay, I get it. This is two people talking. This is two people and a and some kind of media. So I think it's a little more intuitive, which is nice.
Absolutely. And like we say, there is that trade-off between customization and flexibility and ease of use. And I think as much as some of us might want more options, I think the average person, the scariest part potentially is just the overwhelm. So I think there's a reason why a lot of these things are quite simple. I guess there is a bit of a danger that if you're using StreamYard Studio, Restream Studio, or you're using StreamYard, that your show may look similar to all the other shows using those same platforms. And again, there are ways that you can customize those with backgrounds and
Sure.
branding elements. But again, I don't know that that's necessarily something I would lose any sleep over, because I think again it's really about the content, the conversation,
Yeah.
and the things that you're trying to share with the world.
I mean, honestly, if you're, a gamer and you're over on Twitch, you're going to have a big gameplay and a little you right in this corner 80% of the time, and everything looks that way. Like
Hmm.
there are formats and they work for a reason, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, before we wrap up, Sam, where can people find out more about you and what's your content and do all those good things?
Sure, you can find me on any platform at SamProof, except TikTok, where I'm official SamProof, and you can find all my links at samproof.tv.
Awesome. And if you want to catch up with anything that I'm doing, you can head over to johnlacey.com. You can actually watch the interview that I did with, or Tanya did with me. It's actually it's funny. I'm so used to being the presenter that it was a change of pace to be a guest. I really enjoyed it, and talking about OBS Studio in particular, which clearly I can't shut up about. So if that is of interest to you, head over to johnlacey.com. You can watch that. There are links to all the social media things there as well. So I guess Sam, to wrap up today, like how do you think people should approach this if they are sort of trying to choose between one or the other?
I mean, if you have a concept of what your show is going to be, then I think that'll make it easier. But really, maybe just go with the cheapest one, or sign up for both free accounts and just try it out. Try your format both ways.
Nice. And I guess to close the loop that I think I opened earlier in the show and never got back to, it is possible to actually take to work in StreamYard and then use
Oh
that to
yes,
send it out to additional destinations via Restream. So
yes,
it may be something that you want to consider using both. And again, I think even if especially if you're guesting on other people's shows, it's often a good idea just to have a bit of a play to get a sense of what is possible in these platforms, and even just how you might sort of join a session if you're a guest on somebody else's show. Just to be aware of them. Again, they're not massively difficult, but if you've got questions or if you want us to follow up on certain things, we'd love to hear from you. We're always sort of interested in what our audience wants us to talk about.
sure.
So, if wherever you're watching this, leave us a comment if there's something that we need to have a look at together. It's funny, the one thing that really did blow people's minds yesterday when I was talking to Tanya. And a lot of these people are diehard Ecamm users or StreamYard users
Sure.
or Restream, but I showed them the Atom vertical plugin for OBS, and they were like, "Oh, I need this in my life," because it does give you that ability to either record or live stream or both in horizontal and vertical at the same time.
Right.
You can use the same elements on both of them, or you can switch it up. You can literally have different branding from horizontal to vertical. And I think, like, even if you don't have the ability to stream vertically, which honestly I don't have that access on Instagram or TikTok.
Right.
It's a great place if you ever want to just record a video and slice up the vertical version for YouTube Shorts, for TikTok, those kinds of places, and also have the original for YouTube and similar things.
Yeah, and if that is a thing you want to do, you can use OBS even if you're not streaming OBS to Restream. You can use it with either Restream or StreamYard as a virtual camera, so you can be recording that vertical plugins feed as well as pushing your camera to either or even both of the other softwares. As we found out that you can actually have the virtual camera apply to both Restream and StreamYard simultaneously, which
Hmm.
typically with a USB camera, it won't do because the driver will be like, nope, I am busy. I did want to say two other things, which are these are not the only places to multicast and do sort of browser-based streaming. There are a bunch of others. These are, I think, just the most popular and I think the best. Also, you touched on Restream using the Stream Deck, and yeah, you can do all of that with StreamYard as well because it does use hotkeys. And I'm not sure if Restream does this, but StreamYard does apply hotkeys to like the comment section, the brand section, even the private chat you can hotkey to. So I think that's awesome. So yeah, it's easier than you can definitely get away from the mouse experience 80% of your StreamYard stream.
Nice. Yeah. So those are both great points and things to keep in mind. But I guess the thing I want to leave you with is if you're interested in doing this at all, get started. Get
Yeah.
started with the things that you've got access to or that you can buy relatively cheaply. Don't. I know it can be so tempting, and we both say this as people who love tech and love gear. But you don't want to spend $100,000 on your home studio and then a couple of weeks later go, I'm not really into this. because that's going to be a problem. So start with what you've got or what you can access relatively cheaply. Sign up for the free versions of Restream and StreamYard. Try them out. Again, you don't necessarily need to go out to the whole world if you're not ready for that. You could even just have a sort of a smaller audience, and you can work with just some supportive friends, or you can just record locally and just see how it goes. That's always an option as well. But I think really it's the thing that I'm learning more and more is it's not really the tech that's holding people back. There is a little bit of fear. You do need to
Yeah.
work on being on camera and being comfortable and really just accepting who you are and knowing that you can't change things that have gone out live. They are what they are, and you have to be okay with that. So by all means, do all those great things and give it a go. And we'd love to hear from you if you are sort of starting out and what are your pain points? What are the things that you would like to get better at? We'd love to explore those with you. So that would be great. I don't know if you've got any final thoughts before we wrap up, Sam, but I think it's been a great discussion today. They're both great tools. Try them out, get a sense of what they can do for you, and which one's going to work best in terms of your workflow.
Yeah, and we don't typically sort of promote services or anything like that, but especially ourselves. But I think in this particular instance, if you wanted to get into this world, but you don't actually want to learn the software and run the software, you just want to do the on-air thing, I know I'm available for hire, and I believe John is probably as well.
I must admit I do have a full-time job, so I don't know how
That's why I
available I
was like,
am, but hit Sam up first because he'd love to help me with that. And I guess that's the other thing too, like and we mentioned it ever so briefly, is when you're on camera and you're running a live show, you're
it's a
wearing a lot
lot.
of hats at the same
Yeah.
time. Like you're managing the tech, you're managing the comments, you're talking, you're switching up scenes. It can be really great to have an additional person being the producer of your show, and maybe bringing your attention to a particular comment if it's worth calling out.
Yeah.
Even just negotiating with the guests and letting them know that they're on next, which was something Sam mentioned a moment ago. There are so many different ways, and I guess like don't struggle through it too much before asking for help, because there are all kinds of people that can help you. Certainly Sam can help you, and again I'm just going to throw up that website address so you can contact Sam if you need to. SamProof.tv. He can help you out with all those services. And it's funny, I mentioned yesterday talking to Tanya, she was asking about you specifically, and I was like, he's been doing this since 2005. Like, we literally met in his live show on a platform that doesn't even exist anymore. So he has
Yeah.
plenty of experience and quite a lot of talent. So again, keep that in mind. Start simply, start with what you've got, ask for help when you need it, and you can level up over time if
Oh yeah.
that's important to you.
Cool.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back next week, roughly the same time. But again, you check out our social platforms and you can find out your local time. Again, I can't stop talking about time zones and daylight savings. I apologize in advance. But yes, we look forward to your company again. Thanks for those that have joined us live today and those that will be watching the recordings later on. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Take care, folks.